Dividend income is typically classified into two primary categories: qualified dividends and non-qualified dividends. However, there's actually a third very important category of dividend income, and what's really interesting is that this category manages to combine the best attributes of both qualified and non-qualified dividends, and that is return of capital. Return of capital is one of the most misunderstood concepts in dividend investing. However, more and more dividend ETFs are now distributing dividends as return of capital, leading investors to seek out these specific ETFs as a primary source of income. So, why is ROC so favorable? Well, it all comes down to its tax treatment and the amount of dividends. You see, typically, investments that produce qualified dividends have relatively low dividend yields, ranging between 2 to 4%. These include dividend stocks like Coca-Cola and popular dividend ETFs such as SCHD, VYM, and HDV. Now, there are some stocks that have much higher yields. However, you have to be careful with those because there is a chance that you could get caught in a dividend trap. On the other hand, investments that provide non-qualified dividends, such as high-income ETFs, often provide much higher dividend yields because they use alternative income-generating strategies, such as options trading. Covered call ETFs like SPYI, JEPI, and JEPQ are some of the most well-known high-income ETFs. And for those that don't know, these ETFs sell call options on their underlying holdings, collect premium income, and distribute it as a dividend yield typically upwards of 9 to 12%, with some even having yields up to 20%. So this creates a massive trade-off. You either have lower yields with better tax treatment or higher yields with less favorable tax treatment. However, return of capital fixes this problem. It essentially allows investors to benefit from the extreme yields of high-income ETFs while also receiving more favorable tax treatment similar to qualified dividends. So you get the best of both worlds, making it very favorable for income investors, growth investors, or retirees. But there is a catch and some major dangers that every investor needs to be aware of. So how does ROC work and what is the major catch? To begin, the concept of return of capital is essentially returning a portion of your original investment in the fund back to you in the form of a dividend. And since this isn't actual income generation, it is not taxed when it's received. This means that the dividend income you receive from funds like SPYI are tax deferred and you don't pay taxes on them immediately. However, this tax advantage doesn't last forever. Once your adjusted cost basis reaches zero, any further dividend distributions will be taxed as capital gains. So what does that mean? For example, SPYI has a dividend yield of 12%, and had you invested $100,000 in the ETF, in year one, you may receive $12,000 in return of capital dividends. So now your original investment amount, or ACB, which was $100,000, goes down to $88,000. And in the following year, let's say you collect another $12,000 in dividends as return of capital. Now your adjusted cost basis goes down to $76,000. And this continues year after year until your adjusted cost basis eventually reaches zero. This is something that you have to keep track of yourself. Very important. So when you think about it, you have made tax-deferred dividend income for 7 to 8 years, and after that, you will still be getting a 12% dividend yield, but instead of paying regular income tax on it like a non-qualified dividend ETF, you'll be paying capital gains tax on it. And this is what I meant by combining the attributes of qualified and non-qualified dividends. So then this must be the perfect investment, right? Almost. This is where I need you guys to pay very close attention, as there's one major catch here. When building a portfolio, we're often taught to diversify, but owning multiple ETFs that all track similar areas of the market isn't always true diversification. The goal is to own assets that don't all move together under the same conditions. Gold, silver, crude oil, and treasury-related futures each respond to different economic forces, which can make them useful tools for diversification and hedging during periods of volatility. We saw examples of that during the April tariff-driven sell-off when equities declined while gold rallied as investors moved towards defensive assets. Plus 500 Futures gives you access to gold, silver, crude oil, treasury products, and even international index futures like the Japanese Nikkei, all on one platform. And with micro contracts available, you can build positions gradually with smaller sizes, lower capital requirements, and commissions as low as 49 cents per micro contract. It gives you more flexibility to both expand your portfolio and manage risk. Plus 500 is CFTC regulated with no inactivity fees. You can open and fund an account with at least $300 using my link and receive a $60 account credit. Terms and conditions apply. You can find a link in the description below. And remember, futures trading involves risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Leverage can work against you as well as for you. And of course, big thanks to Plus 500 for sponsoring this segment. You see, during this time, the value of this ETF could rise due to capital appreciation. So let's say that you bought SPYI at $50 a share and invested $100,000. And after 7 years, it sits at $75 a share. That is a 50% appreciation, and now my invested amount is worth $150,000. On top of that, your ACB has hit zero. Now, if this was a regular ETF like SPY, if you decide to sell, then you will be subject to capital gains tax on the appreciation amount, which in this case would be $50,000. However, with a fund like SPYI, you now have to pay capital gains tax on the full $150,000. Your capital gains tax obligation has tripled. So when an ETF is distributing return of capital, you have to make sure that you keep track of how much dividends you've received so that you know what your adjusted cost basis is at all times. And in the event that you sell the ETF and have to pay capital gains tax, the total appreciation you must consider is the difference between your final sale price value and your adjusted cost basis, not what you initially invested. This heightened tax obligation at the time of sale could come as a shock to many investors. But what if you don't sell? I mean, the goal for most dividend investors is to hold on for the long term. Well, like I said, once your ACB reaches zero, then you just need to pay capital gains tax on any further dividend distributions indefinitely. And for most investors, that means paying approximately 15% taxes on your dividends. And that is much better than paying 22% or upwards of 30% if we consider regular income tax brackets for non-qualified dividends. But there's actually another major benefit if you don't sell. There's something called the step-up in basis rule. If an investor passes away, the family members inherit the ETF at market value, not at the adjusted cost basis. So if ACB had reached zero after decades of ownership of the ETF, family members would now inherit the ETF at its current market value, let's say $100 a share, wiping out all the tax-deferred gains, which means that they would owe little to no taxes. And that is a major benefit, but it only applies if you never sell the ETF. But let's say you do want to sell the ETF. Well, let's run through a real example using SPYI. The ETF sells covered calls on the S&P 500, but at the same time, it also purchases call options as a means of boosting total returns at times of low volatility. The fund currently has a dividend yield of around 12%, and 90 to 95% of it was classified as return of capital. So it's not quite 100%, but just for the sake of this example, we will consider 100%. But the fluctuation in return of capital distributions is actually very important to keep track of as well. So had you invested $100,000 in this ETF, so far your portfolio value would have grown by 6% to around $106,000, and you would have received around $36,000 in dividends, and you would not be taxed on any of it. However, now your ACB has gone from $100,000 to $64,000. So if you bought this ETF at $50 a share, which was its initial share price when it was first launched, and sold it now for around $52 per share, your capital gains tax obligation would not just be $6,000, it would be $42,000. But if you have no other sources of income, then that $42,000 in capital gains will fall in the 0% tax bracket, so you don't have to pay taxes on it. However, it is very likely that investors do have other sources of income, whether it's from a salary, Social Security, or rental income. And that income will fill the capital gains tax brackets first. So if your total income exceeds the 0% capital gains tax threshold, which I'm pretty sure is the case for most investors, you will be taxed 15% on the total capital gains. So your total tax obligation will be around $6,300. Now, had this dividend income been taxed as regular income, and considering an average $60K salary, that entire $36,000 in income would be taxed at 22% in today's tax brackets, and you'd pay capital gains tax on the $6,000 appreciation at 15%. So your total tax obligation would be around $8,820. Now, given all of this, we also have to talk about the dangers of ROC. You see, many funds might resort to ROC if they are unable to generate a substantial amount of income from their strategy. And that means that their dividend yield is not sustainable and NAV depletion becomes a very big issue. So there's a fine line where return of capital is beneficial but can also be detrimental. And you, as the investor, need to be aware of depleting NAV before buying into any type of high-income ETFs. So how do you do that? Well, what I like to do is look at the yield on cost chart. This is a chart that shows you the relative trend in the net asset value and dividend yield of the ETF. And simply put, if this chart is trending heavily downwards from left to right, then it is a dividend trap. But if the chart is flat or trending upwards, which is the best case scenario, then you have a solid dividend ETF. Simple. Now, gradual NAV depletion happens with funds that have very high yields. But you also have to be aware of the very bad cases like QQQY, which is a high-income ETF which experienced over 50% in NAV depletion. And that is all for this one. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye! This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. Discussions of ETFs, investing strategies, market updates, or specific funds are general, not tailored to your financial situation, and should not be relied upon for decision making. Investing involves significant risks, including total loss of principal, and past performance does not guarantee future results. I am not a registered financial advisor. My content reflects personal research and publicly available information. I may earn affiliate commissions from mentioned products or links disclosed per FTC guidelines, but these do not influence my opinions. Always consult a licensed financial professional and verify information independently. By watching this, you agree I am not liable for any losses or consequences from your actions. International viewers should consult local regulations.